Today, in front of you, you have a lot of materials. Maybe 2 years ago, our speaker, one of the speakers this afternoon, Sharon Ryan, is going to talk about her purpose in her company. And she either looked at this book or Rockefeller Habits. I can't remember which one. Yeah. And called up Vern Harnish, who wrote the book. So I get this call from Vern Harnish that said, hey, Vern lives in Barcelona, by the way. You know, so he calls me up and he says, hey, a couple of your people have called me up and said they're using this book. Thanks a lot for your help. And so I established a relationship at that point with Vern Harnish, thanks to Sharon. Okay, she started out that conversation. Vern's family, believe it or not, lives in Lancaster. Harnish sounds like a Lancaster name, does it not? I don't know who the relatives are, whether it's his mom and dad or his aunt and uncle or whoever it is, but he comes there on a regular basis. So over time, I said, hey, I'd like to do one of your scaling up workshops. And he said, good, I'm going to connect you with the best people in the United States to do this. And so he connected me with Petra coaches. Rob Simmons is going to be our facilitator today. He's the chief. You can read through his bio. It's here. But I'd like to get started. Please give Rob Simmons from Petra Coaches a hand, and let's get going.
Good morning. I'm really happy to be here. Small world story. So I live in Texas now. I live in San Antonio, Texas. I've lived there for 27 years, and I grew up in Alabama. I know it's kind of hard to believe. I have shoes on coming from Alabama. But I was actually born in Camp Hill, Pennsylvania. My parents lived in Mechanicsburg. My father was a minister there. And we moved when I was 3. And I haven't been back since I was probably in my early 8, 9 years old. So this is kind of cool to come back. It's great to be here. I will tell you that the humidity is just as bad as Texas. I couldn't believe that when I got off the plane. I want to share my quick story about Vern Harnish and scaling up, just so you understand where I'm coming from. I owned a business, Toolbox Studios. We were storytellers. We were a branded content marketing firm, and I had that company for 19 years, and I sold it in May of last year. And in 2003, I went to an event just like this one, and Vern Harnish was the speaker, and he spoke, and he said, listen, when you start a new business, I want you to go out on your calendar 7 years. Sounds like a long time. And he says, I want you to block off 3 to 6 months as a sabbatical. And during that 3 to 6 month period, you can have absolutely no contact with your company, right? No phone calls, no letters, no emails. There was no emails back then, but I guess there were. But and he goes, look, if in 7 years you can't build a business that can work without you for 3 to 6 months, then you built a job. You didn't build a business. And it really hit me because it was my 8th year in business. And I thought to myself, there is no way I could step away from my company for a year. It's 3 months, 6 months, not even a week, right? And so that really started me down the path, and that's what woke me up to these tools. I talked to a couple of people this morning, and that's my goal today, is to share some of these tools that I used at Petra Coach. This is the only thing we do is implement the Rockefeller habits. I think we're as good as any company in the world at doing that. We've done it with hundreds of companies. I've been now coaching for 5 years. I actually started coaching before I started sold my business. And my big factor of success is in the year before I sold my business, I spent 150 days on the road for something other than my business. And my business continued to run and continued to thrive. And to me, that was the big success factor. I had that freedom that I finally wanted from my business, and I didn't feel tied down. So that's my story. And so we're going to go through. It's going to be a very work-intensive day. There's going to be one ground rule today. If you're ever in any of my workshops, you'll know this one pretty well. You can ask any of my past girlfriends. You can ask my current girlfriend. I am horrible at reading minds. I have not been able to develop that skill set. I think that's why they're past girlfriends. So if you need something, or you have a question, or you have a comment, please raise your hand and ask, because I don't know, right? We'll get surveys back at the end of these things that are like, oh, it was too hot in the room. I'm like, well, I can't do anything about it once I get the survey the day after, right? But if you raise your hand and you ask a question, I can help you out. So that's my one ground rule today. Let's jump in, if we can put the PowerPoint up. I do have with me Jason in the back. Jason Rush, raise your hand. So Jason is a fellow coach at Petra Coach. He joined us about a year ago. And then Camille, raise your hand. She's my coach coordinator. Camille and I work together all the time. We work with about 20 different companies together. They're here to assist. So when we do the breakout sessions, if you have questions or concerns anytime, just raise your hand and one of us will get over there and help you. So that's Jason and Camille. And I want to play a very quick video. Since John started talking about purpose, I want to show you a video that's kind of the basis of the purpose for Petra Coach.
Always with you what cannot be done. Hear you nothing that I say. You must unlearn what you have learned.
All right, I'll give it a try.
No, try not. Do or do not. There is no try.
We believe there's a lot of power in that simple little statement there. Andy Bailey, who's the founder of Petra Coach, he's kind of a Yoda freak on a lot of different things, but that statement says a lot. The core purpose of Petra Coach is to eliminate the attitude of try in teams and inspire them to do anything through the power of purpose, alignment, and accountability. So the whole point that purpose is the new currency for leaders plays perfectly into what we do, because we believe purpose is the start of that. But if you hear me today, you can call me out anytime. If I use the word try, just call me out, right? Do or do not, there is no try. Imagine if you went to have dinner tonight at the Garlic Poet and they said, you know what, Jesse, we're gonna try to get you a good meal tonight, right? What if you went to buy a car? We're gonna try to sell you a car that's safe. It just doesn't make sense, right? It's a terrible word. It's one of those weak words that we use all the time. And language matters, right? It's a big difference to say, I'm gonna try to lose 10 pounds or I'm gonna lose 10 pounds. It's a big difference. Words matter. And if you start listening for it, to build a culture of accountability, you have to first start by listening for those words. So today, anytime you hear somebody say try, including myself, just call them out and say, hey dude, do it or do not. There's no try, okay? Awesome. So this is one last story. I had a company that we were storytellers, right? I love stories. I'm an amateur photographer. I love travel and I love photography. That's why I needed all those days off. And this is a photo that actually helped me find my core purpose. This is not Petra Coach, this is me. And you can see in the photo, I was traveling in Cuba in 2011. I was in Havana, Cuba, was there with an entrepreneurs group. And we had rented, I believe this was a 1957 Buick convertible. And I'm driving around town with 3 beautiful ladies. And we're just taking a private tour of Havana. And we were driving by the Capitol building of Havana. And you can see all 3 ladies were taking pictures of the building that we were passing. And I looked up and I saw this picture in the rearview mirror. And I thought, man, that's incredible. I mean, the fuzzy dice, the American flag scent, I mean, that's just awesome, right? And the guy with the Panama hat. And so I took this as a picture, and I'm showing this to my peer group. I'm glad we have all these Vistage coaches here today, because I love peer groups, right? Because it was somebody in my peer group who pointed this out. They looked at this picture and they said, Rob, this is so you. You see or recognize things that others have missed. And that became my core purpose, is working with groups to help them recognize the things that they didn't see or they missed, right? So that's my job as a coach today. That's my core purpose as an individual. And I just think it's a really fun picture. Thought that'd be a great way to start the day. All right, so scaling up. So in business, right? We've all been there through the startup stage, right? It's a very challenge to go through startup. Scaling up is that mode between let's say $1 million and $100 million, right? This is where you're really hitting your stride. You're getting to that point where you can do the 3 to 6 month sabbatical. It's the biggest challenge, right? And that's what scaling up is all about. That's our sweet spot. I actually like this slide better. This is a survey from a couple years ago. 28 million firms, 28 million businesses in the country, 96% are under $1 million in revenue. And I will stand here in front of you and make the argument that you could start any business, and a really good sales-minded individual could build any business to $1 million by themselves, right? You could really just hunker down, have 3 or 4, maybe 6, 10 employees, depending on the business, and get to $1 million. But to go over $1 million is a big challenge, because then you have to start learning how to lead, how to delegate. And then you probably need 2 or 3 key people to get to that $10 million mark. To get to the 10 million, past 10 million, which is a big plateau. A lot of people get to there and they plateau out. That's where you need a full leadership team, and you start getting into where you need mid-level management, right? And when you start adding all these people, it becomes more of a challenge to get everybody aligned with where the organization is going. This is the sweet spot for the tools we're going to teach you today, is how do you get past these little valleys of death and continue to grow past these plateaus, okay? Really great slide here from Steve Jobs. Right, it takes a long time. I've got a really good friend in Houston. He says, I'm an 18-year overnight success. It takes a while, right? But you got to have the right tools in place, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Okay, so we've got a lot of tools. Everybody has a folder here. If you pull out your folder, in the front pocket is a thing called the growth tools. Let me set a couple of expectations. We are not going to cover every page, every worksheet in this book today. It's just too much. When we work with clients, and clients pay us to come in, and we meet with them several times a month, we set the expectation that it takes a full 18 to 24 months to fully implement the Rockefeller habits. So if you woke up this morning and you thought, man, I'm going to go to John's workshop and I'm going to implement the Rockefeller habits today, I've got bad news for you. You won't walk out of here having implemented the full Rockefeller habits. But we can start that process today. I guarantee you there will be things that you can implement walking out of here. So in the growth tools, if you open up to the middle, this is the magical one-page strategic plan. Ironically, it's on 2 pages. I've always loved that. The one-page plan. Marketing people, we can twist anything, right? All right, so the one-page strategic plan. This is the tool that we're gonna start filling out today. And the idea is that everything you need to be able to run your organization is on one page. And it starts on the very left. The very first 2 columns are what we call the core, the foundation. We're going to work on those today. Then as you start moving over on the columns, we get into the long term, the strategic decisions that we have to make as an organization. Where are we going big picture? And then as you continue to move over onto page 2, we get into the execution phase. What are the things that we need to be working on now as an organization? And so this one-page plan becomes the tool that anyone in the company can reference for where we're going, because it has the core, it has the strategy, and it has the execution. And we're going to work on filling this out today. And again, we won't get every one of these boxes done, and that's okay. The idea is to start, to plant a flag, put something in one of the boxes, and then continue to refine it. And if you have that mindset that it's going to take 18 to 24 months to fully get this implemented in your organization, it kind of takes the pressure off a little bit, okay? What we find in working with organizations is there's impact almost immediately. As soon as you commit to this and you start committing to the rhythms and some of the tools that we'll teach today, things like the daily huddle can have an immediate impact on your business, but you really start feeling the changes after about 3 to 6 months. So we'll start with this today. That'll be the one-page plan. And so everything in this one-page plan, if you continue to move over, it's almost the next to last page. It says the Rockefeller Habits Checklist. So what Vern did, this is my version of the story, is he started by trying to understand, see, I said it, trying to understand. He started out understanding what did John D. Rockefeller did. When he was in college, he was fascinated with the whole story of John D. Rockefeller. Good Pennsylvania, well, Cleveland, but a lot of that came from the oil fields of Pennsylvania, if you go back and you read the history, of course. But John D. Rockefeller, in his time, was actually 3 to 5 times wealthier than Bill Gates or Warren Buffett today. If you adjust for inflation, the guy was just killing it, right? I mean, it was unbelievable what he pulled off. And so this all started by that, and that's why it still says Rockefeller Habits today. He says, I want to understand what was it that he did so well. And over time, what he did is he basically codified what are the best practices that any business that needs to scale up, any business that wants to be 2 times the industry average for profitability, any industry that wants to have a higher valuation compared to the industry, what is it that they're doing? And he narrowed it down to 10 things, and it's kind of amazing. And I've done this exercise hundreds of times. And every time we do it, I ask the question, do you think this is a good list of things that your organization should be doing? And I've never had anybody say no. Nobody's ever found fault with it because it's a simple 10 things. And here's what we're going to do. Here's the first pop quiz of the day. I'm going to lead you through this exercise, and we're going to do a short version of it. Here's the first thing I want you to know. Do not read the bullets, right? There are 10 statements with numbers next to them. And don't read the bullets yet, right? We don't have time to go through each one of these bullets. What I want to focus on is I want to focus on each one of these 10 statements. And we're going to ask you, from your perspective today, how is your organization doing? And I want you to take a pen and I want you to write a number next to each one as we go through them, 0 to 10. So here we go. We're going to start. We're going to do these together. So the first statement is, number 1, the executive team is healthy and aligned. Number 1, does that sound like a good thing that we should be doing? Yes, Rob? Yes. Okay. So from your perspective, how is your organization doing? Give it a score of 0 to 10. 10 means there's no room for improvement. We're knocking it out of the park. 0 means we're completely dysfunctional. We probably should get one of those coaching sessions this afternoon to straighten it out, okay? 0 to 10. There's no right or wrong answer. This is your perspective of the organization today, okay? Number 2, everyone in the organization is aligned with the number 1 thing that the company must do this quarter to move forward. Everyone in the organization is aligned with the number 1 thing that needs to be accomplished this quarter to move the company forward. Give it a score of 0 to 10. How is your organization doing today? Don't overthink it. First gut feeling is usually correct. All right? Number 3, communication rhythm is established and information moves through the company accurately and quickly. 0 to 10. Okay, number 4, every facet of the organization has a person assigned with accountability for ensuring that goals are met. Every facet of the organization has a person assigned with accountability for ensuring goals are met, 0 to 10. Number 5, ongoing employee input is collected to identify obstacles and opportunities. Employee input is collected, 0 to 10. Number 6, reporting and analysis of customer feedback data is as frequent and accurate as financial data. It's a very specific statement. Reporting and analysis of customer feedback is as accurate and frequent and accurate as financial data. Number 7, core values and core purpose are alive in the organization. Okay, I lied to you earlier. This is the only one where we have to read the bullets together. All right, so number 8, employees can articulate the following key components of the company's strategy. The BHAG, the big, hairy, audacious goal, the core customer, the 3 brand promises, and the elevator pitch. Can your employees articulate the BHAG, the core customer, the brand promise, and the elevator pitch? 0 to 10. Number 9, all employees can answer quantitatively whether they had a good day or week. Answer quantitatively if they had a good day or week. Give it a score 0 to 10. And then number 10, the company's plans and performance are visible to everyone. All right, so let me get some feedback. Number 1, what do you think about the list? By the way, how many people here have read Scaling Up already, or Rockefeller Habits? Okay, so good, about a quarter of the room. Awesome. So what do you think about the list, especially those that have never seen it before? Anybody? It's good. It's eye-opening. What's eye-opening about it?
As I score myself low.
You scored yourself low?
It's not good.
It's not good. It means there's lots of room for improvement, right? There's lots of opportunities. What else? What else did you think about the list? Is there anything on the list, again, I ask this question every time, is there anything on your list that you think does not apply to your specific business or industry? No. Anybody else? Anybody? I mean, I'm okay if you disagree. I'm open to disagreement. Okay, well, good. Well, then we're all in alignment, because that's what we do. We use this checklist, by the way. Every 6 months, we do this with our clients. We go through the checklist again, because this is the constant reminder. I'm not a pilot, but I obviously fly a lot. I travel a lot, right? And every pilot, doesn't matter how experienced they are, before they take off in a plane, they go through a checklist, right? Every time. That's how they follow it. In fact, most doctors now, most surgeries are done following a checklist to make sure that they don't mess up. When you're on a plane and they say a warning light goes off in the cockpit, the first thing they do is they pull out a book and it says, if you've got this warning light, follow this checklist, right? And it's the same thing for the business. And by the way, I was completely arrogant for the first 8 years in business, thinking I knew it all. I thought, why do I need to listen to this Vern Harnish guy? Why do I have to listen to anybody? I've been successful, right? At least I thought I was successful, until I actually got into a peer group and I started talking to other people and I started realizing all the things I was missing, right? And this checklist was an eye-opening experience for me as well. And so this is the tool that we use. All right, so here's what I want you to do. I want you to take a few minutes. We've got several people here that have many people from their company, right? You have several team members together. I want you at your table to compare notes and see, do you guys agree on where are the weaknesses in your company? And I want you to identify one area. I just want you to put a circle around the one checklist item that if you could focus on for the next 90 days, it would be your highest priority item that you'd like to address and improve that score. It doesn't matter if you gave it a 6, you gave it an 8, you gave it a 4, whatever the score is, I want you to identify one item on the checklist that you want to work on in the next 90 days. Okay? And then I'm going to teach you how we're going to take that and move it to the one-page plan. All right? So I'm going to give you about 2 or 3 minutes just to talk at your table, discuss what are the areas that were low, and see if you even have alignment within your organization. All right, let's go. By the way, raise your hand if you want a coach to come by and help. Good conversations. All right, so let me have you come back to one conversation for a moment. Anything surprise you at your table? In complete alignment with everybody at the table? No. What are some of the areas that you considered were the lowest rated? This is important for me to hear, because I'll put more emphasis on this throughout the rest of the day. Number 3, communication rhythm. Number 9, okay, everybody can quantitatively. Number 6, customer feedback, yes. Isn't it nice to know what the customers are thinking? Number 2, yes, quarterly priorities. Is everyone aligned with the number 1 thing to move the company forward? Anybody else? Okay, awesome. So here's what we're going to do for the rest of the day. This is very important. We're really going to walk out of here. Everybody's going to walk out of here with some action items and with some priorities to work on in the next quarter, okay? So just past the 1-page plan, this is kind of the short version. There are 2 pages here. There's the vision summary, and then next to it is the WWW worksheet, right? Who, what, when. By the way, the who, what, when, excuse me, the who, what, when is a great list to use anytime you think, you hear something. Maybe you didn't even hear something. Maybe you just remembered, oh my gosh, I forgot, I've got to call John at the plumbers, right? Go to this page, who, whoever's responsible for doing it, can be anybody at your table. What specifically are you going to do? I'm going to call John at the plumber by the end of today, and then the due date. When are you going to get it done? So this is a way to collect action items. One of my companies I work with is a home builder. They do like $2 million homes. I've been working with them for 2 years. I said, what's your biggest takeaway? They said, implementing the who, what, when list in every meeting in our organization. He says, every time we have a meeting, we have one person who is responsible anytime you hear an action item. Because you know how this works in business, right? Jesse says, yeah, I'll take care of getting that proposal. And he just says it, right? And there's no accountability, and then a week goes by, and you're like, Jesse, where's that proposal? Oh, I forgot all about it, right? And so this home builder, Adam Wilson Custom Homes, all they did is they said, we have one person responsible for capturing all of the action items during a meeting. At the end of the meeting, we send out an email reminder to everybody of what they agreed to. And when we start the next meeting, the first thing we do is we go through the list. Jesse, did you get that proposal done? Yes, cross it off. And it's amazing. It's such a simple tool. I can't believe we don't use it more. So anytime you hear something today that's an action item, and I'm going to give you some suggestions throughout the day. Go watch this video. Go get this article. Go get this book. And you can capture it on this page, and then you have an action item. On this page, we're going to start filling out the vision summary. It's kind of the short version of the one-page plan. And right here in the middle is 3 boxes. Things that we need to do over the next 3 to 5 years as an organization. You might hear something today that you go, man, we really need to do that. But be realistic. Is it something that you can get done in 90 days? Our experience is that most companies, when they start doing this, they're just dying for that need to do quarterly priorities. And so the first time we do a planning session, they want to do everything. And they bite off way more than they can chew, right? So we actually, as coaches, we kind of put a damper on that. We're like, hey, we want to have a very successful first quarter. I'd rather you pick 1 or 2 things, low-hanging fruit, and get them done and get into the rhythm, than pick 10 things and not get any of them done. So be very realistic. If it's something we can't get done in the next quarter, it could also be something that we could get done in the next year. Now we're kind of in the middle of the year, so is it something we can get done by the end of 2016, right? And then you have this third box, which are quarterly priorities. Is it something that we can get done in the next 90 days? And so today I'm going to ask you to think about, every time we finish a section, I'm going to ask you to think about, are there action items, things that I just need to go and do? It takes me a day or 2, right? These are just simple things, just check them off the box. Are they big things? Like, hey, we want to implement the Rockefeller habits. That's not going to happen in 1 year, and it's not going to happen in 1 quarter, so you could write that as a priority in the 3 to 5 year box. You might say, hey, we want to open up an office in New Jersey. I'm not sure why you would, but you might say, I want to open an office in New Jersey, and that's going to take more than a year probably, right? And so you could put that down under 3 to 5 years. We want to add a new service line, right? We want to do outdoor patios, right? They're going to add on a new service division. It might take more than a year. And then you might come up with some annual priorities, you might come up with some quarterly priorities. So here's how it's going to work. When you go to the doctor for your annual checkup, assuming you do, they run a bunch of tests, right? They sit you down, they take your weight, they take your pulse, they take your blood pressure, they run a quick screen of blood test, and they come back with a page of results. And basically on that results, they go, Rob, your cholesterol is high. And that's the problem. And when you're writing a priority, don't write the problem. Write the solution, right? What is it that the doctor would prescribe to fix it? So he goes, Rob, you have high cholesterol. You need to change your diet, you need to work out more, and maybe you need to take a drug, right? That's the fix, and that's the focus. So I'm gonna pick over here on BJ. So they came up at their table, they said number 2, everyone in the organization is aligned with the number 1 thing that needs to happen this quarter to move forward. And so what is the possible priority? What's the fix that the doctor would prescribe, right? So what would be a possible priority that we could put to be able to solve that problem?
Maybe completion of the implementation of our enterprise software system.
Okay, so completion of our enterprise software solution. How would that tie back to the number 1 thing? Everyone align with the number 1 thing? Or is that just a priority you came up with? Okay, so let's think about number 2. That was your lowest rated Rockefeller Habit checklist item. So everybody look on your Rockefeller Habits checklist. What was the one that you scored the lowest, right? So they put number 2. So how would you fix that problem? Anybody at the table here? Establish our critical number, right? The bullets, nice job, Danny. The bullets underneath each one of those are the recommendations of what you can do to fix that, right? So the first thing this table might decide to do is let's establish our critical numbers. Let's say establish and publish our critical numbers to the entire company, right? Would that take 3 to 5 years, 1 year, a quarter, a week? John says a week. What do you guys think? Okay, so where would that go on these 2 pages? That's an action item. That's a who, what, when action item. If it doesn't take a quarter, it's going to go on the who, what, when. And so at the table, and by the way, I'm using them as an example because this is we're going to be doing this all day. So I want you to understand the process. So at the table, you're going to ask, okay, what do we need to do? Well, let's establish the critical numbers. Okay, does that take a quarter? No. Who's going to be responsible for doing it? Who's responsible for doing it here? BJ. All right, so, and by the way, only 1 person needs to write it down. You all don't need 5 people saying, BJ, do this, right? So BJ is going to write down. So when do you think you can have that done? By next Monday. Perfect. So he's going to go and he's going to put in there who, BJ, what, define and publish the critical numbers to the company, and then he's going to put the date of, what is that, the August 2nd? August 1st. Right? So that's how the who, what, when sheet works. Very simple. All right, so now he's committed, he's accountable for doing that. What else could we do to make sure to improve our score? What's something specific we could do over the next 90 days? Read the bullets. Hint. Read through the bullets.
Quarterly theme.
Quarterly theme. Maybe we come up with what is our number 1 thing and develop a theme to support it. Right? So the priority could be define the number 1 thing we need to do this quarter and create a theme so all employees can support it. That would be the quarterly priority, and that would be something that I would write on this page with the vision summary under quarter. Making sense? Somebody say yes, just so I feel better. Thank you. By the way, we're going to have fun today, please. This is, join in. If you're not contributing, I'll just lose my voice by the end of the day, and you'll be tired of hearing me, so just please jump in. All right, so make sense? So everybody take another 2 minutes. We don't have a lot of time, 2 or 3 minutes. Identify what is the fix for your lowest rated Rockefeller Habits checklist item. Play the doctor, write a prescription. There's a shortcut. All you need to do is read the bullets and decide which, if any, of those bullets would improve the score. All right, everybody come back to one conversation. So you should have You can see up on the screen here, you should have some items that you've started entering in the who, what, when list, and then either the quarterly, 1 year, or the 3 to 5 year. And you can just start writing down some notes for now, right? We're gonna qualify this later in the day. Yes?
So if you have an organization with multiple divisions or departments,
Yes.
are you asking us to really focus on the entire company?
That's a great question. No, that's a great question. So in a larger organization where you have multiple divisions, right, it's very common when we work with those companies, there are company priorities. There are things that the entire organization needs to focus on, right? We need to cut food costs by 0.5% this quarter, right? So everybody in the organization can do something to cut food costs to 0.5% this quarter. Then you might have divisional priorities. In this particular, in the barbecue division, we need to focus on a new line of products. We're coming up on rodeo season and we want to have a new line of products, right? So that's the divisional priority that they're going to focus on. There also might be individual priorities, things that you need to work on to move the company forward. And so when we're doing strategic thinking, you have to look across the whole company. And one of the reasons it's great to have multiple team members here is you're going to have some people who are going to be more focused at the corporate level. You'll have some people that will focused on the divisional level. And then some people, everybody can do something to move the company forward. So when we do a planning session, a quarterly planning session, every individual has 2 to 3 priorities that they're going to focus on that quarter to move the company forward. And to be clear, this is about working on the business. How do we make the business better next quarter than it was last quarter? Does that answer your question? And so yes, you will come up with company priorities, individual priorities, and potentially divisional priorities. Any other questions from that exercise? Awesome. Okay. So we're going to talk about strategic decisions. Can your company state your strategy in one sentence? So a big thing for me is always defining words in the first place. Most communication issues are when we have a difference in definition. So what is strategy in the first place? Anybody have a definition of what's strategy? A predetermined plan? Right? There's no wrong answers, by the way. A roadmap? Direction? Yeah, all of these are correct, right? It's a roadmap, it's direction, it's a plan for what makes you unique. And not just unique, but what makes you valuable to your clients. I think that's the key to strategy, is how are you positioning yourself so that you're unique and valuable to your customers. If you're not taking the time to do this, and by the way, I think this is where most companies fail. They never take the time to think strategically. They're so focused on the day-to-day fires, right? We rush to the urgent at the expense of the important, right? And strategic is important. So we're going to spend a little time on that, and it starts with, I'm going to skip ahead here. It's going to start with, John set it up perfectly today, as I can get this out, is we're going to do core purpose, right? We're going to talk about what is the core purpose of your organization. Again, let's define it. How do you define core purpose in the first place? By the way, it's also called mission statement. Sometimes you see this. Traditional business school, I was raised hearing mission statement. I don't like mission statement. I come from a military town, right? San Antonio is a big military town. Mission to me is like you go and you conquer and you take out a target and you're done. Core purpose is bigger than that, right? Core purpose is why you get out of bed every morning. So how do you define core purpose? Anybody? Just shout it out. Starts with the customer, okay? Starts with who you serve, okay? Who else? Why you exist. Who else? Core purpose. It's why we get out of bed every day, right? It's why we exist. It's what we do at the core. It's our core reason for existence, right? At the end of the day, it's what we do. On this page with the vision statement, at the very top, in the very center, it says purpose in this box. You can see it up here on the screen. Write down what you think the core purpose of your organization is today. If you don't have a clearly stated core purpose, just guess at what you think it is. Why does your company exist? Why do you get out of bed in the morning? What is it at the core of what you do to serve your customers? Write it in this box. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of writing. That's good. Would somebody like to volunteer what they've written down? Can I have one volunteer at least? BJ. To bring happiness to every home. It's beautiful. What do you guys think? Got a strange look over here. To bring happiness to every home. What does that mean?
We started with what we do, and
Yeah.
we asked why that was important. We kept asking why, and we realized that we bring happiness to people.
Man, I'm just going to give him the mic, let him come up and do the rest of the session. That's awesome. Anybody else? Any other volunteers on this side of the room? Yes?
We provide infrastructure products to build other businesses and communities on.
Okay, say it one more time.
We provide infrastructure products to build other businesses and communities on.
We provide infrastructure products to build homes, communities, and businesses on. Okay, awesome. So one thing about your core purpose, it's never about money, right? It's got to be higher than that. Profits are a result. We need profits, don't get me wrong. I, as much as anyone, love profits, but it's not your core purpose. So if you wrote something down that's like to make a crap load of money, that's not good, okay? Also, if it took you 3 or 4 sentences to explain it, that's not good either, right? This needs to be a very short statement, like, say it again, BJ?
Bring happiness to every home.
To bring happiness to every home. It's nice and it's short and it's sweet, right? Here's the other thing about it. Here's the other test. I think it should be a good substitute for an elevator pitch. I think when somebody says, what do you do? You should be able, when you say, hey, what does West Shore do? You should very comfortably be able to repeat your core purpose. It should be the start of every conversation. And if it's not, then that's a bad thing, right? So let's go back to the slide deck. So let's talk about some other classic examples. I also put some of my company examples. What is Starbucks all about? What's the one word that you associate with Starbucks? Is it coffee? I don't think their coffee is even that good, right? What is it? Marketing? Experience. Yes. It doesn't matter what Starbucks you go into, and I've been in a lot, they all have that same comfortable feel, right? You can go in there and you can flip open, you can be one of those millennials, right? You go in there and you flip open your laptop, you can work there all day, you don't even have to buy the coffee, you don't have to buy anything from them. They make it that inviting of an experience. And you've seen the millennials that do that, right? The word that they use a lot is escape. Is for the price of a cup of coffee, you can escape to a third place, right? It's not your home, it's not your work, it's the third place where you feel comfortable. And I do it all the time when I'm traveling. I go to a Starbucks to do a little bit of work because I know what the environment's going to be like, right? What about Apple? What's Apple all about? What is it? Innovation, right? What else? Design. Ease of use. Yeah, they challenge the status quo. Everything they do, you know it's going to be different, right? I actually like that old campaign they used to have, Think Different. If I had to say what Apple's all about, is if they came out with a toaster tomorrow, what would you know about it? It'd be completely unlike any other toaster that's ever been out there. What else would you know about it? It'd probably be expensive. It'd be beautifully designed, right? And there'd be a line of people waiting on day one to buy the toaster, right? All right. So those are 3 examples, Starbucks, Escape, Disney. That's another classic one we talk about all the time. It's all about happiness. It doesn't matter if it's a movie, it's a theme park, or it's one of their games. It's all about happiness, right? So sometimes if you have a hard time getting to what is the core purpose of your organization, just think about what's the one word that can really get it across. So you heard me say earlier, anybody remember what I said my company did? Stories. We're storytellers, right? Anybody would say, they'd say, hey, what does Toolbox Studios do? We're storytellers. And I would pause. I did this on purpose too. What do you think the first reaction was when somebody heard storytellers? Yeah, they're thinking, like, oh, you're sitting at the library, like reading to kids or what, right? But it always got this response. The response was, wow, that's different. Tell me a little bit more about that. What do you mean storytellers? And when you do an elevator pitch and you say that, I just set the hook, right? When somebody goes, oh man, tell me more about that. Like if BJ tells me that they're doing happiness into every home, I'm going to be like, what? Tell me about that. How are you putting happiness into every home? And it's a great tool. So use this as an elevator pitch. When you get your core purpose refined, get everyone on your leadership team, everyone in your company to start using that as the elevator pitch. It should feel very, very comfortable. By the way, we had an expanded version of that, right? So it's storytellers. We create content that engages, inspires, and educates, right? I believe in 3s, especially when it comes to the brand promise. So those are the 3 things that we owned: engage, inspire, and educate. But it started with storytellers. I told you about PetraCoach. You know, the short version is we teach do or do not. There is no try. That's kind of weird. Tell me about that. Well, yeah, we teach teams. We remove the attitude of try from teams. And we do that through by instilling purpose, accountability, and alignment. Again, 3s. 3s are good. All right, back to the PowerPoint. And I'll show you just a few more examples. By the way, when you find it, here's the best part. You're going to align the people that you hire. You want to hire people who want the same thing as you, right? I had a girl I hired for a design position at my company a couple years ago, and when we hired her, we knew that she was really talented. She passed all her interviews, she passed all her tests, and we thought, man, she's going to be great. But we also knew that she was she was pretty sought after. And when we hired her, we said, man, we're so glad to have you on board. She goes, yeah. She says, I could have gotten $10,000 more at the agency down the street. I was like, wow, that's kind of interesting. I said, why did you decide to come here for less money? She goes, oh, they're just an advertising agency. I want to tell stories. And that's true. She said that to me. I was like, oh, we got it. We nailed it, right? We started every presentation with, we're storytellers. And we had the whole thing. Every major meeting, we started with, remember, we're storytellers. And it was just ingrained in our culture, which is the key. But when you start finding people who are aligned with what you do, they're going to come work for you, not because of the money, but because they're there because they believe in what you do. Okay? That's the important part. All right, so a couple of examples. By the way, the 4 types of core purpose. I've almost always seen this consistently. The good. Are we doing something in service to others? The truth. We're seeking the truth, right? Beautiful. We're in the search for beauty and excellence. Or the heroic. We're trying to change the world. See, I said try again. We're changing the world. And so those are usually the 4 categories that they come into. If you haven't seen it, this is something you got to put on your who, what, when list. If you have not seen it, I was in marketing and communications for 25 years. This is the most impactful 17-minute video I have ever seen. I changed my company the day after I saw this video. Simon Sinek, How Great Leaders Inspire Action. I still watch it all the time. I will go back and I rewatch this on a regular basis. I think this is the most powerful tool, and it's all about what we're talking about here, is once you have a really powerful core purpose. So go to TED, make sure you watch the video, have your team watch the video. Before you define your core purpose, this is the starting ground. By the way, I'm going to save you the trouble. I read a lot of books. I read a book about every other week. I've read Start with the Why. Watch the video. Everything you need to know is in the video. The book was okay, but it wasn't that great. Save your reading time for something else. Simon's not here, right? Just kidding. All right. So here's a couple of my clients that I've worked with over the years. Adam Wilson Custom Homes. I mentioned them earlier. The Who, What, When list. They build these beautiful multi-million-dollar homes, very modern, in San Antonio. And for them, it's to build happiness. Kind of similar, right? When BJ said that, I'm like, oh man, it's kind of cool. To build happiness. Because for them, a lot of their clients, they actually cater to the, we have a lot of Mexican nationals in San Antonio that have moved into San Antonio, and they build in these beautiful communities on the north side. And for many of them, this is like their signature home. This is their home where they're going to be for the rest of the life. This is the home that says, we've made it. And they want this home to reflect that, and they want the home to reflect that this is their happiness, this is their pride and joy. So they now start with everything. All their commercials, too, start with, we're here to build happiness. And they talk about it all the time. They even have like a little hashtag. They do a lot of social media stuff, my social media stuff in the back, and they do a lot of stuff with to build happiness. Another client of ours, Rapid. This is a manufacturing. This is a very large manufacturing company. What they do is they take the CAD designs and they will actually have those manufacture those parts. Like you can send them a part at 10 p.m. and you'll get it the next day. It's really kind of crazy how fast. Everything they do is about we manufacture time. In the manufacturing world, when you come up with a prototype part and you want to see if it fits, you know, before you produce 10,000, you want to make sure it's right. And so they have to be able to produce this part, but they realize that the biggest need of their customers is how quick can we get it? And we talk about core values in the next section. I'm going to refer back to them because I think you'll see their core values actually tie into this. But we manufacture time. Everything they do is with a sense of urgency, okay? And then this is a restaurant chain that we work with in Houston, Texas, Good Company. They've been around for 60 years. Amazing food, amazing barbecue. To share and preserve the rich cooking traditions of Texas. In case you didn't know, Texans are a little proud of being Texans. And so how do you think this plays for the employees, the people who are there, the busboys, the cooks, the waiters, the waitresses? They love the idea that we're here to preserve the rich cooking traditions of Texas. It's more than just showing up for work to deliver a plate of food, okay? One last one, because I think this is a very unique one. The Barracks are a group of townhomes. They're actually one of the largest home builders in the country. That's how many units they build every year. And they do it in college towns. They're in College Station, Texas right now with this huge development. They have a wakeboarding pond. They have like a lazy river they're building, like a resort pool. It's like a really crazy cool environment. But the reason, this was really cool, the reason is because the owner, Heath, has a passion about when kids go off to college. It's like that first time when they transition from being in a home where somebody's looking out, and he wants to make sure that they have a place where they're loved and they're cared for. And he said it all came from, he grew up with really wonderful parents in a really wonderful Christian household. He never wanted for anything. And he says, when I got to college, it was the first time I realized that not everybody was like that. Not everybody had the kind of family that I did. And he said, I was really moved by this because I started meeting all these friends in college, and they had like rotten, parents, and they had divorced homes, and they just had nothing that I had. They didn't have the love and the caring. And he says, so I wanted to create a place on campus where kids knew that they could always go and feel like they're loved and taken care of. And so theirs is change lives like Oprah, keep it real like Chuck Norris, and share love like Jesus. Now, can you tell from that core purpose what the culture is like there? Yeah, they're a hell of a lot of fun. I mean, they're a young group, they're very feisty, they're a lot of fun, they're always doing stuff, but it starts with your core purpose. Change lives like Oprah, keep it real like Chuck Norris, share love like Jesus. And they talk about this all the time. All right, so I want you to spend just a few minutes and talk about what is the core purpose that you wrote down. Are there some things that you want to refine? One last warning, it took me like 10, 12 years to nail storytelling. Don't expect that it's going to happen overnight, right? But you can at least spend a few minutes today talking about what did everybody write down? Is there anything that we need to do? And when you feel that it's right, I want you to move the final version to the one-page plan. So that's going to be the first box we're going to fill out on the one-page plan is the one that says core purpose. And again, if you don't have the actual final language, like you want to go back and watch that Simon Sinek video, that's fine. Just put a draft in there for now. What do I want it to be? But really shorten it up, really get it down to a couple of words, even if you just have to own one word for now. Make sense? Okay, I'm going to give you guys about 5 minutes to do this, and then we've got just a few more things to wrap up before our first break. If everybody will come back to one conversation, I hear some really good stuff going on. And I've had some really good questions. I want to share some insights from what I've heard around the room. I've heard several times, well, we've been around for 60 years, 50 years. It's been around for a long time. Should we be changing this? Yes, absolutely. You need to find what is that core purpose for the organization. And what I find many times is that if you go back to the founder of the company, there's usually a really good story there that kind of ties into why they founded it in the first place. The core purpose very often ties back to the owner and what they're passionate about and their own core purpose. You know, the storyteller thing for me was kind of an epiphany because I come from a line of ministers, right? My dad was a minister, my grandfather was a minister, and I realized that that calling that they had was also a very similar calling to me. I love the whole storytelling nature. In fact, I think that's a big key of why I do what I do today, is I love that whole idea of being able to take stories, find the right parable, the right way to be able to convey a message. And it's the same thing. So you got to go back and you got to find what was really in the founder. And if the founder's not with us anymore, are there stories from those days that we can get? And I shared the story, The Good Company. I wish I had a copy of it because it was really funny. When we first started working with them, they had given us a whole bunch of documentation to fill out the one-page plan to start with. Where are you at today? And we were in our first planning meeting, and I said, okay, here's the core purpose that we have written down. And it was like, we are committed to the highest level of customer service quality and serve our customers with clean, healthy food and blah, blah, blah. And it ran on for like 2 paragraphs. And it was like something out of a Dilbert cartoon. And literally, as I'm reading it, the owner of the company, the president of the company, was sitting there horrified. He was like, where did you get that from? And I said, well, you guys handed it to me. And somebody up in the room said, oh, well, that's in our employee manual. Somebody in HR wrote that. And my question is do you want somebody in HR, no offense to HR people, but do you want somebody in HR writing the core purpose for your organization, or do you want that coming from the founder and the leadership team? Right? So this is something that you need to work on. This is not something that we're going to solve right now, but it's something you need to work on. It's something you need to feel very, very comfortable being able to use this as an elevator pitch. Okay, so we got a few more minutes. Remember, as you have action items, as you hear things and you need to do things, capture them. Do or do not. There is no try. Capture them so you get them done. All right. One last subject before the break. The BHAG. This is the second most important thing. Well, it's right up there with core values. There are 3 things that make up the core ideology of an organization. The core purpose, the BHAG, and the core values. And we're going to talk about all 3 of them, right? And this is another one that you're not going to solve overnight. But I want you to hear it, and I want you to think about it. Here is the most important thing about the BHAG, right? It's the combination of these 3 things. What are you best in the world at? What can you make money at? And what do you have passion for? And we use this all the time. Every engagement, to my marketing people here, we started every engagement with this. And I'm going to give you the short version of how to remember this, right? So it's the Venn diagram of where do the three circles combine. This is the space we want to play in, right? And here's the easy way to remember it. Okay, they got it up on the screen. So A plus, what am I best in the world at? What am I really, really good at? I love that, right? What can I make money at? What am I good at? What drives my economic engine? And then finally, what am I passionate about? So if you can remember to draw that graph right here, A plus, a heart, and a dollar sign, you can remember this. So we use this when we talked about clients, right? We get a new client. We had this company come in. It was like Weight Loss International. They had developed like this pill you take once a day, and it would drop 20 pounds, you know. It was complete BS. I mean, I could tell right from the get-go it was complete BS. The two owners were overweight. I'm like, you can't sell this. And they did. They grew this into a multi-million-dollar business. It was crazy. They had people lining up to buy this product. But I took it to my leadership team, and I said, can we do this work? They said, yes, Rob. We are the best in the world at doing marketing and branding. Yes, we can do it. Can we make money at it? Yes, they were making money hand over fist, and we could have made money at it. I said, do we have passion for it? And everybody looked at me and they were like, no. No, we're not doing this, right? And so for us, this became the test of every client that came through our company, and I think this is also true for most companies, right? We had other examples. We did a lot of nonprofit work. We loved doing nonprofit work. Were we good at it? Yes, we were very good at it. Did we love doing it? Yes, it made us feel good. Could we always make money at it? No. Unfortunately, a lot of nonprofits didn't appreciate the prices that we charged. And if they didn't appreciate the value that we were bringing, we couldn't do the work. And so it's another example of how we use this. But it's the same thing for the BHAG. The big, hairy, audacious goal is what's driving your direction for the next 30 years, 10 to 30 years. Think about that for a second. That's a long time out. And by the way, almost every priority that you come up with every quarter in some form or fashion should align you with the BHAG. This should be your one true North Star, right? The core purpose never changes. That's why we exist. And the BHAG is where we're aiming. Thank you. Here's the mistake I see most companies do. They immediately go to financials for the BHAG. Most companies will put something down like, we want to do $100 million in revenue by 2030. We want to generate $20 million in profit by 2015, right? In fact, I'll pick on good company. Levi's not here. So their BHAG was $100 million in 10 years. And I was like, I said, do you think the person working, you know, that's the pit master that's making all that beautiful barbecue really cares about you guys hitting $100 million in revenue? Does the bus boy cleaning the table care about hitting $100 million in revenue? No. It's not about money. If it's about money, then you start getting people that only care about money. It's one of the most important things. If you hire people that are aligned with your core purpose, they're going to be much more engaged with fulfilling that core purpose. So your BHAG, when you develop your BHAG, it needs to align with your core purpose first and foremost. So if you have on your core purpose to instill happiness in every home, I would ask BJ, what does that look like in 10 years? If you were to truly accomplish that core purpose for another 10 years and continue to grow, what is it that we would accomplish? What would that BHAG look like? All right? Do you have you guys done this exercise?
Yeah.
What do you have?
The most admired U.S. home improvement brand.
The most admired home improvement brand. What do you guys think about that? So one question I would ask, how are we going to define most admired? I'm sure you've gone through this, right? It's completely okay, by the way, to put that statement up there and then define underneath it. I'd put a list of bullet items. What does most admired mean? Most admired means that we get regularly put into articles. We are regularly asked to speak at conventions. You know, there's a line of people waiting at our door to work for us, whatever it may be. The BHAG, because it's 10 to 30 years out, can be a little bit more fuzzy than most things, okay? Let me show you, am I losing stuff? Okay, I put my clicker down. Can you advance to the next slide? One more. Oh, Subway, this is a great story. I have to tell this one last story before we do it. So the story of Subway, the guy who started Subway, and his name is escaping me, he was a college student. No, not Jared. It wasn't Jared. Yeah, we won't go there. So here's the really cool story about it, is he went to his business professor and he says, look, I'm really having a hard time affording college. I need to find a way to make more money. Thank you very much. And he said, I've got this idea. I want to open a sandwich shop. And the professor says, okay, go build a business plan and come back to me. And if it's a good plan, I'll support you, right? So he came back and he had this business plan. And in the business plan, it says, I'm going to open a sandwich shop and I'm going to have 7 locations in, I think it was in 5 years. And the professor thought, wow, he's got a lot of gusto. You know, he's just starting a business and he's already thinking about 7 locations in 5 years. And he goes, why did you pick 7 locations? And he told the business professor, he goes, well, I went out and I found my biggest competitor in town and he has 7 locations and he's a complete idiot. So surely I can build a company that does the same thing. So fast forward, the guy was impressed. He funded the business. He opened his first location, and it was one of those classic things in food service. They had a bad location. I mean, a really bad location. And he shares the story that one day they came home and they had like $3.70 in revenue for the day, right? It doesn't take any math analysis to know that that's a bad thing. And so the professor was really concerned about his investment. He goes, listen, son, you're going to meet with me on Saturday. We got to figure this out. We need a plan. We need to figure out what are we going to do to save this store. And so on Saturday, the kid comes back with the plan, and he goes, well, what's your plan? He goes, well, I found another location. We need to open location number 2. And the professor's like, are you crazy? Like, the first location isn't working. He goes, yeah, but we're never going to hit that BHAG of 7 locations in 5 years if we don't open the second one now. Right? And so it was what drove him to continually think about where are we going big picture. And he realized that, hey, look, this was a mistake. This was a learning curve. We had one bad example, but we've got to keep pushing to be able to make the plan work. So it was creating the vision and sticking to it, right? So back to the slides. So then they moved to 32 restaurants in 10 years, right? And then they said, we want to have, man, this thing goes fast, 5,000 locations. And then that wasn't enough. They said, we want to have 50 cents of every customer in the country every week. Think about that statement for a second. And now they're up to 100,000 locations. I think it's a little too location-centric, but you get the idea here. There's the hedgehog. We already talked about that one. So here's 2 examples from my customers. So remember, we manufacture time. So Rapid Manufacturing, their BHAG is to become the Amazon of custom parts. So what do you know about that company? If they become the Amazon of custom parts, what do you know about it? What do you know about Amazon? Monstrous. What else? Fast, right? What else do you know about Amazon? They have everything, right? They have so many solutions. They make it easy to return products. Like, everything about it was based on how do we get to be this company. And then also the barracks. So remember, I told you the story about Heath, and he's really committed to missional. You can tell by having Jesus in the missions, in the core purpose. He's got a very strong Christian foundation. So they do a lot of mission trips. They do a lot of giveaways. And he goes, you know what? My goal is to give away $100 million over the next 20 years. And he says, I'm going to do that through missions and just direct donations. And he says, we're building this business to help other people. And that's the way I'm going to measure success, right? And so it's not really a revenue number. It's more of what are we doing with the revenues and the profits. And this is how it impacts the organization. In the planning meeting that we introduced the BHAG, one of his younger mid-managers spoke up and said, hey, you know what, I just had an idea. We have all these apartments that are rented by college students. And every summer when they go home, now as parents, you guys don't want to hear this. He said, every summer when they go home, they pile up tons of stuff on the curb to throw away because they just don't want to put it in storage or take it home. There are desks, there are beds, there are clothes, there's just all this stuff. What if we put together a program where we gave them an opportunity to give us that stuff so we could give it to nonprofits? We could actually make it a program so instead of them putting it out on the curb for trash, we're actually collecting it. Would we count that stuff towards the $100 million was the question. Sure, right. That's what the owner said. The owner was like, oh my God, that's a great idea. Why haven't we done that before? But it was having that BHAG to align. So there's the examples. The last thing, you're not going to have a chance to do it today. We don't have time. But I want you to capture an action item to work on your BHAG. If you don't have one defined, it could be a great quarterly priority. It could also be an action item for just the owner of the company. But this would be a really good thing to work on, is the big, hairy, audacious goal. There's a lot of tools out there. We're going to give you some references at the end of this presentation. Jim Collins and Jerry Porter wrote an article called Building Company Vision, which talks a lot about the BHAG as well.